feature so that everyone can see your question. And then we'll look to the panel, see them on your screen to answer your question. And so as the moderator, I'll take the first one. Question for the panel. You can go back in time 3 years. What equipment, systems, and redundancies would you tell yourself to invest in now that you've had the experience of the pandemic and other disasters?
I can start off by saying that I plan on filling up a Conex box with PPE for future endeavors. So definitely have a supply chain available and fully stocked. And basically, I have enough equipment, PPE for 6 months. That's one of my game plans.
Yeah, I'll second that for sure. You know, an N95 mask isn't going to go bad. You know, we all stock bottled water and emergency food, you know, that lasts 6 months to 2 years or 5 years in one of those food buckets, I guess. But PPE you can have for a very long time, and I'm sure it'll be just fine when you need it.
All right, I'll ask the panel another question. How well do you think your agency efforts were integrated in the overall emergency management system? Any panelists can answer.
This is Steve from Sonoma Water. I actually am going to piggyback on the last question, then go to this one. I think if I was to go back 3 years, I would invest in our IT infrastructure and position our staff and kind of the telework remote capacity building and integrating that into our management culture. I think that would have been a huge, smoother transition for us and provide some additional efficiencies. For this question, I think we're absolutely integrated. From the get-go, we were involved in the county EOC efforts. We actually supplied a lot of staff to working at the county EOC and maintaining that liaison. So I felt it's been really good. Sonoma County is fortunate. It's a mixed blessing that we've exercised those systems fairly regularly with all the disasters we've had. So that's probably put us at an advantage to be able to maintain that integration.
Anyone else care to respond to that question? How have you integrated this into your overall system?
This is Heather. I would just say that it's been very helpful for us to work with the county's EOC. We're not large enough to really, be our own EOC, but very important for us to have that connectivity. And I think several times we've kind of represented sewer districts and kind of what's happening there, especially early on. I think that communication was especially important to remind, for example, communities out there who were seeing sewer staff active, that it's okay and it's actually required that we need to have that staff out there to prevent overflows.
Great. Stephen, there's a question for you. Carla Tejada asked, you mentioned a virtual EOC. What does that look like for your agency? Are you Zooming daily? Who's the one running, or who's that being run by, I guess is the other question to it.
Good question. When we originally activated the EOC, we were meeting on a daily basis. It was by teleconference at the point. We hadn't got a video conferencing system established that was functional enough for us. So we basically, if you think about your typical EOC structure, we had all those positions assigned. We went through the action planning process and had those briefings and meetings almost on a daily basis. That was for the first few weeks while we really just kind of worked through the transition of the immediate impact. And then since then, we kind of have weekly meetings just to check in to see where we're at and if we've worked to objective. Most of the objectives we have company objectives that are ever to keep track of all our costs and expenditures, staffing, our operational tempo and momentum, and what has happened where we've had need to work on issues. We've just pulled the team for as needed discussions and conversations. So it's actually worked really well. Probably almost even better than it would if you're in a physical UC where there can be a lot of distractions sometimes.
Okay, excuse me. We got a question from Pamela, and she writes, since so much of the issues were in communication and psychological stress, do you feel a need for more training in these soft skills? And that's to anyone on the panel.
I do. I feel it's one thing I've been talking with our general manager about is doing some critical incident stress debriefings for our staff. And because of the pandemic, but because of the series of events that this agency has gone through, that, you know, I've been in public safety and emergency management for 20 years and have been through a lot of different events, and that trauma builds up in staff. And I think we need to be cognizant of that as an agency and put the tools in our staff hand to let them know that to self-recognize and what the support is for them to work through, because we're all experiencing it in a different way. So it's appropriate to acknowledge that. I think we should be all government agencies should be putting more effort into that these days.
I totally agree with that. Every employee was different. I was a coach, I was a mentor, I was a psychologist, and everyone was different. So I totally agree on the need for more training.
If you haven't already, it'd be a good idea to put your view in speaker view, then you can hear which one of the panelists responds a little better. There's a question here from Jeff Tucker, and he's asking about your professional networks. He says, how important were your professional networks as you were responding in the moment? Areas of practice where better networks need to be developed.
We work very closely with all the cities and towns, and when we were running low on PPE, the town of San Anselmo, Sean Condry, came to our aid. We have a real close-knit, and everyone's working together. Everyone was helping each other out. When we didn't have hand sanitizer and they had it, we did a lot of horse trading and basically trying to find different vendors throughout Northern California on where to get stuff. So the personal networks were extremely important.
Any other panelists care to answer?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit to the personal side. Being in the wastewater field, you develop lots of personal relationships with, colleagues in different agencies, towns, whatever. And it certainly was nice to have that resource, even for just a sounding board. Here's what we're doing. How's that working out for you? The personal / professional relationships really come in handy. And that, not to pump up BAYWORK, but that's what comes from BAYWORK is to develop those relationships. So, I can call Kevin or Robert and say, any ideas on how I solve this problem? Because I don't think I'm alone in saying that I did not have a plan for a pandemic breakout at my wastewater treatment plant. It was it was seat of the pants, and let's see how we can handle this. We focus a lot on earthquakes and fires and floods because of where we live. So we have generators and food storage and potable water. None of that was handy this time. It came down to 5-cent rubber gloves and $1 paper masks. Just to talk.
Yeah. Well, feel free, David, to pump up BAYWORK all you want. We welcome that.
The other thing with the personal networks was when we brought our guys back to work, I was able to talk and walk them through all the different operations at other facilities for collection systems and go, hey guys, we're not the only ones doing this. Some people thought we were brought back to work too soon. There's all different kind of questions, but when I could go talk about, Central Sand, Union Sand, SFPUC, all these other agencies, hey, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're not rushing it. We're taking our time. But it was being able to explain what other agencies were doing was a lot easier for my guys to take in and process and go back to work.
I'm going to add from the flip side, most of my background experience has been just traditional emergency management at the county and city level. So this is my first venture specifically into a water wastewater agency. And only starting in February, I didn't have that integration into the network. And it was cumbersome. And it was challenging in some respects, just not knowing who to turn to and to get. So forums like BAYWORK, were able to get immersed in CalWarn and ended up turning out, which a value turned out to us being a point of distribution for face coverings. But having those networks is absolutely critical and essential. And I want to underscore that because I feel I didn't have them at the beginning of this. We've certainly built them throughout this, and many of the folks in the water agency had them. But just for my own personal benefit of kind of taking on the emergency response role, it's cumbersome. If you don't have those networks and who you can turn to get advice and just share some ideas, it hinders your ability to be as effective as you can be, I feel.
Any other panelists?
So we got oh, you want to go, Robert?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. We got a question from Carissa Westfall. Since this type of work is essential work, is the outlook for employment good? She's asking as someone who hasn't worked in the field yet and is currently studying wastewater operations at SRJC.
I can speak to that. Ross Valley Sanitary District is looking at filling several positions over the next year. So please tell that person to check us out if they're interested. But it's an essential duty. I can't have sewage running into the creeks and creating a public health hazard. And we have to do what we do.
Yeah, and what I'll add to that is that I've attended meetings down in the Bay Area as well, with a lot of wastewater treatment facilities, East Bay Mud, Contra Costa, and one of their biggest concerns was, they have an old workforce that they're looking to hire new employees, and they were, there was concern because there's just are not a lot of people coming into the field. And I can tell you, even at Sonoma Water, same boat. We're always looking for young talent as well.
We're hiring right now.
There you go, Chris.
So yes, my contact information should be here.
For anyone that has positions open, you can use the BAYWORK job posting page to help advertise them, and that's available to you for free.
All right, here's another question any of the panelists can respond to. How will you use your experience with COVID-19 and other disasters to work with your staff, executives, and elected officials to better prepare for the next major issue? I know some of you have been talking about that a little bit, but maybe you can respond a little more.
Well, I will definitely be looking into CalWarn and the emergency response training. We've done very well so far with the COVID-19, but I would like to be on the same page as other agencies and districts in case something worse were to come around. So I will definitely be looking into that.
And I'd just like to echo that. We're anticipating PSPS to come up next. So if we have still some shelter in place and PSPS, we know our residents are going to be in a whole new stress level.
All right, here's another question that hopefully some of you can respond to is how is the ongoing pandemic affecting your agency's finances? And is this likely to impact operations in the next year?
I can say that we are continuing on with our plans for our rates, and those support our sewer operations. So we're not anticipating losing much funding there, although people tend to conserve, and part of our rate is based on usage that's tracked through water meters. But we're actually fortunate in this industry that I'm not anticipating as much of a hit, for example, with the sewer enterprise as the property tax funded activities like Brecken Park.
Okay.
And then we have some local agencies that are on furloughs. We're looking at cost recovery where we can actually perform our work on, say, potentially storm drains or help other districts smoke test, do condition assessment. So I'm coming up with a cost recovery plan with the general manager to help them out. But I think we're in very good financial standing.
And for us at Sonoma Water, I'd echo that. As a special district, we rely primarily on our water and sanitation rates. We're not as influenced on the sales tax and other tax revenues that cities and towns and counties typically fall burden to. So we feel pretty steady and stable for the near future.
Right. Here's another question from Elizabeth Toops. Are there technical skills that have emerged as basic skills that all employees should have as a result of COVID?
Teleconferencing.
Okay. Yeah.
How to mute and unmute your phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Making sure when your camera's on.
If you can boost your Wi-Fi signal too, that helps.
Yes.
Yeah, serious. I'd say from a technical capacity, I think managing whether it's projects or people remotely, I think it's a technical skill that needs to be refined. And it's been around for a while, but now it's got greater emphasis on it. So I'd say if you could put emphasis on developing skills, it's on that management of people and projects remotely.
Yeah, our first couple of Microsoft Teams meetings weren't that good, but now it's just, it's really coming around. Everyone's getting used to it, but definitely a skill set that people need for remote.
Great. In relation to our question about the finance, Anthony Smith asks, does anyone have worries about delinquencies of payments having much financial impact on their operations?
We've looked into this. We believe our fees are on, our fees are on the property tax bills, and so we believe we're protected by the county's teeter plan. Teeter plans basically say that counties will disperse the monies owed essentially to districts, even if they haven't gotten payment yet, and then they collect the payments, and also the late payments stay with the county.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, so we got a question for Emma Mack. She goes, especially for Sonoma Water, what are your best suggestions on rumor management among staff during emergencies in a larger agency?
That's a loaded question.
Turn off all web access, turn off TVs. I think really be frequent in your communications that are factual, and do them for us, we did it in kind of a layered way. Every Monday we would put out communications to all of our staff, just with like an FAQ, a running FAQ of questions they've submitted, but also some of the current directives or activities we have underway. That was underscored in a more personal, casual way on our Wednesday all hands calls with our general manager, which were briefer, more personal, more casual, and just kind of help keep a good mood and tone. On Fridays, we would communicate directly to managers and supervisors with specific information that we want them to take and engage with their teams with, so that they could convey the information to their staff as they are supporting them. So we kind of hit it in varied layers. I'd say sometimes it worked really well and sometimes it didn't. You can't remove the human factor out of it. So you just have to continue to kind of reinforce where you can and adapt. But those kind of that three-pronged approach we took, for us, we did a survey actually of all our staff a couple weeks ago, asking them specifically how they felt in terms of being engaged and informed, and it was overwhelmingly very positive. So we felt we were able to hit a good stride there.
Well, I'll ask this question. What forms of outreach have you done to practice social distancing for field staff?
Well, again, we got all the signs, magnets, loaded up the truck. We've heard a lot of great things from people about it. Kids love it, and got to constantly. Definitely the outreach in the field, the banners. We've had board members notice people sitting there talking to their kids about why wipes. Do not flush wipes. You know, and we a lot of success with our outreach. And the video and the commercials on Comcast and DirecTV. Got a lot of great feedback on that.
Those have been really great initiatives. I really appreciate Ross Valley doing that. You know, it helps us all. We've been lucky that we haven't had a pump station clogged up with wipes yet, knock on wood. But we've also done a lot on Nextdoor and just kind of pushing out again, you know, to the community members that we know are, you know, kind of networked out to remind them how important social distancing and all of those other measures are right now, especially.
And if anyone wants to contact me, I'll get you the vendor who designed all that. It's very inexpensive. That was even the better part of the whole thing, working with Gold Street.
In terms of employment out there, if you're looking for it, you notice that there were at least 4 or 5 agencies said here, we're hiring. And also, again, I want to reiterate that you can check BAYWORK's website for job postings, and those jobs can be posted there. Another question, it says, I know that some of your agencies have been paying attention to your organization's culture for some time. Have you learned anything new about your organization's culture during COVID-19? I guess not, huh?
There's been an incredible amount of teamwork coming together and overcoming. Everyone's had family medical stuff or whatever, and everyone's coming to the aid of the other supervisors. Management's been amazing, helping, you know, even me during a certain couple of incidents, but it's really brought us together, you know, and trying to figure out how to come back to work safely, putting out the fires, the rumor mills, this and that. And Teams was a great thing. We set up. We also have a meeting once a week with Teams, but it definitely brought us together in an amazing way.
I'd echo that from Cinema Water. I mean, I've only been here since February, so I can't really tell what the long tenured culture is, and what I've been exposed to, you know, it's an extremely resilient team, and they've been through so many different events and activities over the recent years. They're kind of, it's a norm now that they have to kind of go through an event every year. So I think the culture of resilience is there. I think now we want to kind of put it into a place that it's less emotional and less exhausting every time we have to do it, and build a culture that's a little bit more supportive of them being able to do that instead of having to put so much emotion into the responses sometimes. But you know, this is a great place, and fortunately this county has, again, that mixed blessing. It's had a lot of opportunity to work through some tragedy, but you learn from that and you build from that, and it's an extremely dedicated workforce from all the agencies on this presentation. I think you've experienced that.
Anthony Smith asked, have you noticed any schisms between people who are working at home and those that cannot?
Well, I would say, I mean, that's kind of to be expected. And you know, not to brush that aside, but I think that it's pretty typical that field staff see administration or whatnot. You know, they're either sitting in their office doing nothing, or they're at home doing nothing. That's okay. It comes with the job. And, you know, I think that communication and having those meetings, whether it's via Zoom or Teams, or, you know, we've had on-site, outside meetings that, you know, we used to do in a conference room, that kind of stuff, just to, you know, kind of remind each other we're all humans, we're all working on this together, and showing some appreciation for the field staff as well. You know, they're in a unique position because I think they feel probably justifiably so that they're at extra risk, and it's great to pass on those kudos from the public who are so excited to see that they're out there working hard to keep us all safe. That's another way that I think we can kind of convey that appreciation.
In Sonoma Water, we've experienced that. I wouldn't say it's unique to this COVID-19 situation. I think it's been there. It's kind of never present. You know, part of it is nomenclature. We really recognize, you know, hey, we're closing all the offices, everybody's going home to work. This sends a bad message. It's really, we're transitioning staff into a telework position or profile. Even to the point of, you know, where the county and the local media is saying, this is reopening, your government offices are reopening. We wanted to really be quick to get in front of that to say, you know, we're just continuing our operations, which is why we're calling it a continuing operations plan. We are going to continue to operate. Everybody's still doing the same work. Sometimes they're in office and sometimes they're not. In previous places I've been to where this has also existed, I feel that sometimes the staff in the field, and I've been a member of the field, sometimes that divide starts to create when they feel they don't have a voice and they don't feel they have an outlet, because a lot of times decisions are made in conference rooms or meetings or in the administration building where the field staff aren't necessarily going to be, and they don't feel like they have a voice maybe sometimes. So we've really been trying to put those outlets out there to make sure that they have that voice, that they are heard, they are valued. Kind of underscoring what Heather was just suggesting. It's not easy, and it's certainly culturally something we need to be aware of and continue to try and break down those barriers in everything that we do.
You know, Robert, actually, I wanted to add one other thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
That schism can kind of work both ways, because I've had a lot of board member comments like, you know, staff in the field can't be doing anything. And that just, it's just so angers me that I have to kind of explain, you know, they're working, they've got new procedures to deal with, they've got more people kind of coming at them that they've got to talk to about keeping their distance. So they're not able to do some of the extra niceties that we used to do in the field. An example being, normally we do free sewer lateral inspections, and we've temporarily stopped that because we need to spend all our time doing cleaning and maintenance, things like that. So, you know, just kind of a reminder that just communication is key all the way around.
I second that. And then we get a lot of information from the field frontline staff through safety committee meetings. And we had one yesterday, a lot of great feedback that I'll be providing to management. So that's one of their avenues to voice what's going on.
I think you've kind of covered this, you guys, all of you have been speaking to this to some extent, but this is a question I think can kind of bring it together somewhat, but it is, what changes to policies or procedures during this pandemic do you see staying in place after this is over with? I think this bears repeating, even if we have to.
I've turned into a fan of the social distancing, and I've seen a lot less people call in sick. So the social distancing, definitely the outreach. I'm planning on continuing. We're looking at a next round in December for more videos and just getting the word out and improving the communication plan and updating the COVID exposure control plan. There is some benefits. There's some silver lining to some of this.
And I would just echo that and say, I think that we have learned to do some of our work remote and, via email, text, Zoom, whatever it is. That's very useful for us because, especially in Marin County, we know that a lot of our staff can't afford to live right near our facilities. So we need that flexibility. That's something that's been common in the private sector for a long time, and local government has been pretty slow to pick it up. And I even see that in terms of, just really taking the PPE seriously as well, for our staff, that it's not, don't be a cowboy. It's something you need to do. And then as far as the public, I hope that, this is what we see is that people really appreciate that we're out there working, and that they can contact us in other ways. Marin County skews older. 28% of our population is above 65. And so I think in the past, there's been a lot of I need to drop in and talk to, whomever. And to the extent that we can put that communication online or by phone, I think we can actually handle a lot of questions a lot faster that way.
If I can just add to that from a supervisory standpoint, cross training is one thing I'm going to focus more on. The more people I have who can do the same tasks only gives me more flexibility. So.
That's good. One says, will handshaking be discontinued?
I'm not going that far. You got to wear a glove, though.
But I think this all is making us more aware of how we can pass things to one another. I think everyone has a heightened awareness of that. So there's another question. Have there been challenges with getting field staff to consistently wear new PPE, mask, and or concerns about needing to keep that up over the long term?
They definitely need reminders, and absolutely. If you're wearing a mask, you're on 90 degrees asphalt, and you're working hard, that mask will fog up your glasses. It is uncomfortable, but it's, hey guys, we signed up to do this. This is our job. It's a hard job. You got to wear it. Take micro breaks. Go in the vehicle, your own vehicle, and take a break. We don't want to slow down, we're not making our guys work harder and harder and harder during a pandemic. We're still getting the same amount of work done, but PPE really affects you, especially if you're doing excavation, which we're not trying to do. But if you have an emergency, we have to dig it up. We have to fix it. Generally, staff is extremely good around the office, but some friendly reminders. It's it's a safety violation. If you need to take a break, move away and go in your truck and take a break.
I would just echo that. And it's, you know, it's a new habit, but it's also, like Steve said, some of this PPE is extremely uncomfortable. If you're trying to wear a traditional N95 mask all day, and you're essentially running from one stop to the next, which is what some of my solid waste workers are doing, you know, from one house to the next, like running and grabbing carts. It's pretty tough. I think we need to, you know, acknowledge that, and then also that it just needs to be done, and figure out, you know, if we can provide something more comfortable like a fabric mask, but not. Same thing with the face shields, you know, some of our sewer guys are not used to using that, and it's just not an option. You got to do it.
Second that.
Did you have difficulty with unions for schedule changes?
Actually, that went surprisingly well. No, it's and again, management and the union, we get along for the most part on many accounts, but that transition, we were very generous with having them stay home till we could get a confirmation on the aerosol. But most of the guys they wanted to come back. You know, they didn't understand they had to be around their significant other for 3 weeks, and they look forward to coming back. So, but we did take a softer approach with, you know, a couple hours here, then 6 hours, and then when we could finally bring back people for 8 hours, I think it went really well.
Yeah, same with us in Windsor here. What you know, my team really came together as one and understood, you know, we need 2 operators at the plant. How can we make this work? Some people got a couple extra days off, and a couple people had to work a couple extra days in a row. But there were no issues that I was brought up. I was really impressed with how flexible and how everybody came together. Couldn't have asked for more.
Yep.
Yeah, same for Sonoma Water. I think if there was discussion points around unions, it was from the management side, and just anticipating there would be union concerns, which never materialized. Unions have been extremely supportive and engaged, and really wanting to do whatever they can to support their teams. So, you know, I think it's been a great relationship there.
Wonderful. Here's an interesting question. What are agencies doing about providing water for field staff in the heat, since sharing of coolers and igloos, etc., is now discouraged? And also an attached question to that, someone else asked, any issues with not being able to share the microwaves?
No issues with microwaves at our place. But again, each of the drivers, 99.9% of the time, have their own vehicle per day, so they have their own igloo. We supply a ton of water from. We got all kinds of bottled water at all the various places we report to, but no issues that I've heard of for water.
Can any other panelists reply to that?
We're similar to what Steve just mentioned, with issuance of vehicles that are primarily to individuals, and using individual bottled water hasn't been too much of an issue, fortunately, so far.
All right. You've talked, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Another question you've talked about encouraging staff to take more breaks if needed, and more frequently communicating with staff. Were there other small things that you have done to ease the pressure on staff and build morale?
I'll take the first one of that. Childcare was a big issue, you know, right out of the gate with this when schools and daycares shut down. Some small, you know, a small thing that helps is just being flexible and maybe some start and stop times. You know, if you need to leave early, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, stress on it, and I don't want you to stress on it either. You need to come in a couple minutes late because, you know, you have to wait for your significant other to come home from work so you can report to work. This being flexible as a boss is kind of all I can do right now. I can't hand out bonuses. We can't have you know, a big barbecue where we all get together. So just you know, realizing that we're all people and we're all getting through this, and we're all going through, you know, those waves that Stephen Hancock talked about, where we go from anxiety to fear to you know, to stress.
Yeah.
I think the amount of accommodations that we did on a case-by-case scenario, people with secondary underlying sicknesses and this and that, that really helped morale. I heard a couple of guys go, I thank you. And I don't get a lot of thank yous. So, you know, it was, there was a lot of flexibility, and we were still getting the work done. We took a hard hit 1 month, and we came back. We got the most footage cleaning wise than we ever did in a month for the last year. So we came back Ross Valley strong.
Yeah, and for Sonoma Water, we've been promoting, I mean, flex with our supervisor. It really is to the point of the just being flexible, and you know, everybody's situation is a little bit different and unique, whether you're working, still coming into a site and doing your work, but not the people you typically depend on are there, or you're working at home and you're balancing a workspace with 3 kids in the background and a partner who's fighting for the same space. So we've just really been trying to encourage flexibility. We also did, when we did the survey of all of our staff, we wanted them to kind of let us know how much of an impact that was, so we could build that into our project management as well. Because what we did recognize is, you know, telework was really working efficiently for us from the get-go, to the most part, but that was for some, not all. And then for those who it was working well for, the people who it wasn't working well for were just feeling that building up of burden. So it was really trying to back off where we expected maybe traditionally a 1 week turnaround on a signature, back it up and let's say give 2 to 3 weeks notice to get some of those things taken care of now. So really just incorporating flexibility. And I think I think to Steve's point too, we've received a lot of acknowledgement and praise from our staff for encouraging that and allowing that to happen where we can.
Someone asked, did anyone ask, or did it come up about hazard pay for those that are maybe in more jeopardy than others?
It did come up for us. You know, it's really difficult because we don't have that kind of a system already set into our policies. And, you know, also kind of balancing that community. There were some community members who actually suggested that. And then, of course, there were others who were, you know, felt that would be a gift of public funds and that kind of thing. So I think that's something that has to actually go all the way up through the board level to approve a policy like that. And unfortunately, you know, in an emergency, it's not quick.
Sonoma Water, it came up, not a lot. And I think where we're also monitoring it is the HEROES Act at the national level. The federal legislature is working through the very CARES Act and some of the things we've seen. One of the ones that was up for adoption is the HEROES Act, which does provide hazard pay specifically to those staff who had to continue going into work and supporting those field type operations. So we're monitoring that to see if there's an option. We're certainly accounting and capturing the costs associated with that. So if a window presents itself, we will certainly go that direction to support our team.
Here's another question. What plans are you making for bringing teleworking staff back into the office?
So I'll hit it up. We're in the process of moving into a larger facility. We had our current office and landing. So right now it's extremely hard to social distance, but all my people are out in the field. So that's not an issue for me.
And I would say for us, we're really looking towards bringing back some of the on-site services that we used to provide. So we collected batteries and electronics and things like that, basically at the office. So we're going to need to move those outside of the office into the yard so that we can do those services most likely on a appointment only basis. And I've noticed that, someone mentioned earlier, there's been press releases like county offices are reopening. County offices are reopening for appointments only, not just like walk into the counter. So we'll look towards that model, but because we're so small, we really, we're not going to be able to provide, for example, cleaning of all surfaces between each person's use and those kinds of things. We don't, we have a small facility and we don't have prospects of enlarging it. So we have to be pretty conservative about how we go forward. And that's probably not a bad thing. It's probably a good thing for us to all learn to do a little more teleworking.
For Sonoma, we, our continuing operations plan that we put out really kind of captured most of everything we've done to create a facility. First and foremost, for the staff that can continue to work in a telework fashion, that is the direction we're expecting them to do that, as we want to continue to mitigate the risk for everybody. Where we've gone through and made sure all workstations maintain that social distance. We've taken away excess conference chairs in meeting rooms, so you could only sit so many people. We've adjusted occupancy capacity limits. We have health screening stations set up, so every employee gets screened before they come in. So we've done a lot, and then a lot of it is just kind of putting trust on the staff to do what's right. If the microwave is being used, don't go up and just stand next to them waiting for it to be done, and then wash your hands before and after and all those things. So we're putting a lot of trust on our staff, which I think they deserve. But at the same time, where we can make accommodations, we are doing that to the facilities, and then allowing staff to continue to telework. And I think that's important because we're continuing to see the case counts increase throughout the nation, but especially here, even Sonoma County. So we want to continue to do what we can to help mitigate that.
Well, Kevin, I think that's probably our last question that we should probably field given the time.
Thank you, everyone.
I was on mute. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I will. So here's just some closing thoughts that I wrote down. When I think of Sonoma Water and organizations like BAYWORK, BACWA, BASMA, I continue to go back to sayings that I've heard during the protests, and Stephen Hancock had it on his last slide in terms of, together we're stronger. And then if you watch basketball, you see Golden State, their thing is, strength in numbers. I believe these slogans apply to us as utilities, as coworkers, and as people. I believe we can accomplish a lot when we work together, when we share information, ideas, and thoughts, similar to today's webinar. And I believe if we work together, there's no pandemic, there's no flood, fire, or earthquake, or PSPS that can stop us from doing our job. And I guess the last thing I want to say is thank you to all the speakers, Stephen Hancock, who I owe a lot. And Stephen Mixis and David Ernst and Heather Abrams from presenting today and talking, and and letting us know how their organizations responded to the pandemic. And with that, I will close the webinar, say thank you for listening and participating, and I wish that you have a great day today. Thank you.
One more thing, Kevin, we just want to remind people about the CEUs, and if they're interested in it, to make sure that you inform us about that if you haven't already. And also, we want to invite you to, there's going to be a brief survey that will be coming to you. It's also, it should be a link in the chat box, and you'll be receiving an email as well to complete our survey. We really want to know your responses. We're trying as BAYWORK to move into this new era and get better and be as good with the online as we had learned to get with our in-person. So we'd love to hear your responses back as we go to this new time. So as Kevin said, thanks for attending, and we'll be looking to see you again really soon.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And especially Kevin for innovating this idea.
Stay positive, remain negative.